You're tuned in to the only all-sports talk network in the Middle East, IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Body and Soul Gym in the heart of Talpiot. Great machines, excellent staff, and wonderful classes such as Pilates, yoga, and kickboxing. Give them a call at 02-678-8861. Once again, that's 02-678-8861. www.body-soul.co.il. Once again, that's www.body-soul.co.il. That's Body and Soul in the heart of Talpiot, which is great for your body and your soul.
You're already using a credit card every day. Why not feel good every time you make a purchase? When using the HAS Advantage Support Israel Visa card, a percentage of each purchase you make will be donated to your choice of 24 Israeli-based charities, while still earning a reward point for every dollar spent. But wait, these rewards are even better than the standard rewards you get, especially when using them towards Israel travel, with the best conversion rate on El Al's Matmeed Frequent Flyer program. Earn double points at some of your favorite supermarkets and restaurants in the U.S., as well as discounts all over Israel. If you love traveling and supporting Israel, HAS Advantage is the card for you. Just give us a call toll-free at 1-866-6-ISRAEL. Sign up right now with the code ISR10 to earn 2,500 bonus points. That's 1-866-647-7235. HAS Advantage. Earn rewards. Support Israel. Offer valid for U.S. citizens only. Terms and conditions do apply. When dialing from within Israel, please dial 1-800-200-818.
Israel Sports Dynamics specializes in football consulting, equipment, uniforms, and more. Great brands such as Nike, Russell Athletics, Shutt Sports Products, and many more. Just one call away. With over 30 years coaching experience with university and professional athletes, Terry Hill, owner of ISD, can advise you for all your sports needs. Call 054-581-3248. That's 054-581-3248, or visit our website at www.isdisrael.com. If that's not easy enough, click on the ISD banner on the Israel Sports Radio website and be part of the game.
Are you tired of paying for expensive gym memberships that you don't use? Are you frustrated by not seeing results? It's time for the X1. Israel Gym Systems is proud to launch the X1 suspension and bodyweight training system. Lose weight, build muscle, improve balance, coordination, and flexibility. With your purchase of the X1, you'll receive a free membership to IsraelGym.com and access to our archives of videos and exercise plans. Sign up today at www.IsraelGym.com and get ready for the new you. Israel Gym X1. Higia Hazman.
DJ Venom, DJ Venom, DJ Venom, DJing parties throughout Israel, birthday parties, weddings, club events, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, and much more. You pick the type of music and DJ Venom will turn your event into the party of the year. Available Sunday through Thursday. Call 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. That's 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. Book your party today. That's DJ Venom.
Broadcasting live from Israel.
IsraelSportsRadio.com.
From the ISR studios, it's Louis Live. Now here hosts, me and Raphael Geller. How you doing, Raphael?
I'm good as usual. We have a pretty unique guest, college football analyst, Israeli basketball player, NBA draft analyst, and then Tommy Smith to round things off. That's going to be very fun, especially after the epic game last night, or match you could call it, with Bayern Munich and Real. I know Ari and I watched a couple of the first few minutes together.
I was amazed by that crowd, the enthusiasm,
right.
And we were talking about this with Jim yesterday, that more people watched the game last night than the Super Bowl. At least when you break down the raw numbers.
A lot more.
Oh, so that's something that was truly incredible, and it looked like such a festive atmosphere. And the game in itself, some people have said it's the best game in 10 years, correct?
Some people, it was a great game. The penalty kicks came down to the last penalty kick. 3 guys from Real missed: Sergio Ramos, Kaká, and Ronaldo. And Ronaldo's considered the best player on the team, if not the world, probably second to Messi. We're just sorry for starting a little late. We were having some technical problems, but we're ready to go. We have a good show coming up. Our first guest is going to be Joseph Koch, who's the editor-in-chief at Pro Basketball Draft. So we're going to talk with him about NBA draft, NBA playoffs, mostly NBA draft, to be honest. Some mock drafts, some underclassmen who should have stayed and left, all that kind of stuff. Then at 5:30, we're going to call Adrian Banks, who's I think leading the league in points right now, or maybe second to Sylvan Landsberg, who we've also had on the show. They're both potential NBA prospects. We'll see what happens with them, but we're going to talk to him. Then Ari and I will do our own fun preview of the NFL draft, which starts tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern in the United States of America. And then at 11, we're going to have Jerry Denardo, who's a Big Ten analyst, and he's been a coach for multiple big programs, Indiana University, Louisiana State University. And then, like I said, at 11:30, we're going to round things off with Tommy Smith.
All right, so we're going to take a break and dial up our first guest on the other side. You're listening to Louis Live in Israel, sportsradio.com.
You're tuned in to the only all-sports talk network in the Middle East, IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Body and Soul Gym in the heart of Talpiot. Great machines, excellent staff, and wonderful classes such as Pilates, yoga, and kickboxing. Give them a call at 02-678-8861. Once again, that's 02-678-8861. www.body-soul.co.il. Once again, that's www.body-soul.co.il. That's Body and Soul in the heart of Talpiot, which is great for your body and your soul.
You're already using a credit card every day. Why not feel good every time you make a purchase? When using the HAS Advantage Support Israel Visa card, a percentage of each purchase you make will be donated to your choice of 24 Israeli-based charities, while still earning a reward point for every dollar spent. But wait, these rewards are even better than the standard rewards you get, especially when using them towards Israel travel, with the best conversion rate on El Al's Matmeed frequent flyer program. Earn double points at some of your favorite supermarkets and restaurants in the U.S., as well as discounts all over Israel. If you love traveling and supporting Israel, HAS Advantage is the card for you. Just give us a call toll-free at 1-866-6-ISRAEL. Sign up right now with the code ISR10 to earn 2,500 bonus points. That's 1-866-647-7235. HAS Advantage. Earn rewards. Support Israel. Offer valid for U.S. citizens only. Terms and conditions do apply. When dialing from within Israel, please dial 1-800-200-818.
Well done, guys. Great show.
Back here on Louis Live, down up our first guest. Let's get here in the background. And I'll dial up, talk some NBA draft.
Hello.
Hi, am I speaking with Joseph Koch?
Kotash.
Kotash, excuse me. This is Ari Louis with Louis Live in Israel Sports Radio. How you doing out there?
Great. How are you, Ari?
Doing great, and it is a lot of fun to speak with you. We're going to speak with about the NBA draft, and my first question for you is: this is very much NBA, like all leagues, a copycat league, and many people have the Heat projected as winning the NBA championship. If they do, how does that affect the draft? Does someone say, well, the Heat have a star-studded cast, 3 stars, and we have to try to build our team that way? How will a champion affect the draft?
Well, I think that just like in other sports, professional sports is a league of copycats. So if there's a certain trend that seems to be successful, then more teams are going to try and emulate that as their blueprint for success. So, for instance, there's a very stark contrast this year. You've got, of the top 4 teams, the most viable contenders, 3 teams were homegrown, built teams, Oklahoma City, San Antonio, and Chicago. And then you've got a team like the Heat that was assembled amongst veterans through free agency and trades. And so, I think it could be a very stark contrast. So if a team like the Bulls or the Thunder win, or even the Spurs, I think more teams will continue to stay the plan, stay the course, and build through the draft and through smart trades and reasonable free agent spending. But if the Heat win, then I think you'll see more of a push to emulate what the Heat and the Knicks have done, which is assemble big names, star power, and bigger payrolls.
Hi, Joe. You're on right now with Rafael. I wanted to thank you again for joining us. It's always fun to talk some NBA draft, especially with the NFL draft coming up. Everyone expects us to talk about that, but the NBA draft is a personal favorite for Ari and I, so we're very glad you could join us.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate it.
The thing I wanted to talk to you about is I'm a huge college basketball nut, and in this past draft, that last draft, there's a lot of guys that were drafted from these smallest schools: Norris Cole, Cleveland State, Kenneth Faried, Morehead State. Kenneth Faried has had a monster season. We just had someone on from ESPN Denver radio affiliate, and he was talking about the potential on this guy. He just got completely overlooked. I was just wondering if you could maybe give us a name of a mid-major guy who could slip into the first round this year, who could have the same potential as Norris Cole or Kenneth Faried.
Sure. I mean, if you're looking for a smaller school, some of the guys that would probably come to mind initially might be, for instance, an Arnett Moultrie. Now, he played at Mississippi State, which is in the SEC and might be better known, but before that, he played 2 years at UTEP. And Mississippi State wasn't exactly the best place to be, but he's a name that should be called somewhere in the middle of the first round. Some other names to keep an eye on. I think you could see guys like Mo Harkless from St. John's, who had a very nice freshman year and really impressed people. I don't think he was seen as a one and done.
Right.
So.
Great,
yeah.
And I wanted to ask you a little about the North Carolina and everything that happened there. Of course, Kendall Marshall, who wasn't even starting really last year until he got put in the lineup and led the nation in assists, and Ed Hedson, and of course, I'm an Indiana guy, so I've been a huge Zeller fan for a long time. I've been following the three brothers since they were little guys. I went to a game in Washington, Indiana, which is where they're from. Cody Zeller had an amazing monster season, 15 points a game, about 7 rebounds a game, led the team in steals, I believe, and also in blocks. A lot of people said that if he came out, he, of course, decided to stay in, or at least for right now, he's not going out. People say he would have been a top 10 pick. I want to talk now a little bit about his brother, Tyler, who ran out of eligibility at North Carolina, was the ACC Player of the Year. What are you expecting from him in the NBA? It's not like Tyler Hansbrough, but they're both kind of have that body build of tall guys. Tyler Hansbrough probably could shoot a little bit better, but what are you expecting from Tyler Zeller in the NBA?
Well, I think Tyler Zeller is going to be a very solid center. I don't know that he's going to be an all-star at any point, but it's hard to find 7 foot centers in the league today. And so if you got a 7-footer who can score, and Tyler Zeller certainly has an array of offensive, game, I think he's a guy who should go right around 10, maybe no later than 12 or 13. But I think he's certainly going to be a very good player and could probably start for several years in the NBA. But as for comparisons, I would think somebody along the lines of a Chris Kaman type. Not saying necessarily that they are the same player, but if you want to look at a career, somebody who has played solid basketball for pretty much every season he's been around. I think that's the sort of center you'll get, but you'll get more offense and probably not quite as much defense. There.
Okay, great. And now last year, a lot of freshmen shocked the nation by deciding to stay another year, help their team get to, I guess, the Final Four, raise their stock. I mean, a lot of these guys didn't really need their stock to go up. I'm talking about the Terrence Jones, Perry Jones, Jared Sullinger, all those guys. Now they're coming out this year. We have the addition of Anthony Davis and Andre Drummond. Do you think that the guys that are going to be taken in the top 10 this year in the draft, I mean, is this a really solid draft? Should we be excited about the future of some of the guys I just mentioned?
Yeah, if you look at this year's draft, I mean, certainly you've got a marquee franchise-like player in Anthony Davis. Now, I'm not prepared to say, Anthony Davis is going to be the next Bill Russell or like some people say. But I think he's going to be a very good starter. I think he could be an all-star for several years, and I'm very intrigued because he has so much potential. If he can come close to it, I think this could be one of the best first picks in quite some time. That being said, though, the rest of the top 10 might not quite be as much in terms of star power, but you're going to get really good players who should be able to start for you and contribute. I mean, you look at Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, who our site has listed as the number 2 overall prospect. Andre Drummond, those are guys who should be able to start and play at close to all-star abilities if they fulfill their potential. Bradley Beal's another one like that who could be somewhat of an Eric Gordon type of guard. Thomas Robinson and Jared Sullinger should be guys who can help a team. Talking small school prospects, I've neglected to mention Damian Lillard, but he could be a guy who goes in the top 10 to a team like Utah who needs a point guard. And I mean, he's got some very intriguing, talent. He's a great athlete, and so there's certainly a lot of guys who can help out. I just don't know if this is going to rival the 2003 draft class, with Hall of Famers, all throughout the top 10.
Right, and as you spoke 2 seconds ago about Utah needing a point guard, I was watching that PTI, of course, with Tony Kornheiser and Mike Wilbon last night, and Tony Kornheiser made a really good point. They were talking about Steve Nash's last game in Phoenix, potentially, not for sure, but probably. And you add a guy like Steve Nash to that Utah team, and that Utah team is just, they have so many big guys who are capable of being stars. Gordon Hayward from Butler, Derek Favors, Enes Kanter was just drafted last year in the top 3, Al Jefferson, of course, from Minnesota. I mean, those are 4 guys who could be not superstars, but stars. And you add a point guard to that team that's very capable, and you never know. So what do you think about Steve Nash maybe joining Utah?
I think that would be a possibility, but I think Steve Nash's 2 most likely destinations are probably New York or staying in Phoenix. If he were to move on, there seems to be a lot of sentiment that a team like New York, a big market that he's interested in entering, would be a place where he could go. There's even been rumblings that he could go to a team like Miami. I think if he were to just look in a vacuum at rosters, though, going to a young roster, up-and-comers, a team that did qualify for the playoffs, so they will be experienced. I think that would be a great team and a great situation. I just wonder if he wants to go to such a young team where, he might not be able to really contend for a title for at least a year or two. And obviously at this point in his career, time is running out.
Right, and I was looking at this some mock drafts earlier, and a guy who I kind of want to get your opinion on him. It's Terrence Ross, that is from Washington. Washington had a ton of talent this year. A lot of guys were all McDonald's All-Americans, but they couldn't put it together. What are you expecting from Terrence Ross in the NBA?
Well, I think Terrence Ross has some very interesting, aspects to his game. He's a good shooter. He can score. He's long. You can project and sort of look at and see that there's something there that teams are going to like. I think he's probably, late lottery, maybe, no later than 18, 19, somewhere around there. Dallas probably is his floor at this point. But, a guy who I think could help right away, playing in the rotation, and depending on a team's situation at guard, might be a guy who could actually start. And I think he'll be a pretty good player for several years.
Right, and a guy, I'll tell you, my favorite player this year to watch in the NCAA tournament and whatever in the season was Royce White. This guy's a really interesting guy. He has, of course, the anxiety disorder that's gotten him a lot of attention, but besides that, he's a 6'8" guy who can bring the ball up the court, which you don't see that much in this day. His knock is that he can't shoot that well. He really struggles with shooting. but his athleticism, he's just a very smart guy. And, of course, he went to Minnesota. He stole the laptop, got in a lot of trouble. Hoiberg recruited him along with Chris Allen from Michigan State, and they had a pretty successful year last year, playing Kentucky, I believe, in the third round, that is, before Kentucky played Indiana. Do you think this guy could have stayed. He's only a sophomore, eligibility-wise. Do you think that he's ready to jump into the NBA and contribute to a team?
Well, from a talent standpoint, yeah, he certainly has the ability to probably even sneak into the back of the lottery. I think the character questions, the anxiety disorder probably bring his stock down. So even though he's got maybe back-end lottery ability, he probably is looking at a range more like starting around 18, 19, and probably into the mid-20s, somewhere around there. I could see him slipping a little bit, but I would certainly think somebody in the late 20s would absolutely jump on that, just because at that point you're taking a chance on all that talent that it works out. So he's got a great size, and he's a very good athlete for his size. I mean, a guy who gets more publicity in this draft as a prospect, but probably isn't quite as good as him is Jared Sullinger. I mean, they've got comparable body types. Sullinger doesn't have the same issues, but you look at Sullinger, and most people would agree he's a consensus lottery pick.
All right, Joe, this is Ari Louis. Thanks again for being on Louis Live on Israel Sports Radio. I want to go to the number 15 pick because I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, big fan of the Suns, and I will eventually come to the realization Nash is leaving and accept it. But apparently, according to the mock draft, Myers Leonard is selected at that spot. They think he's going there. 7 feet tall, 245 pounds, out of Illinois. The saying is you can't teach height. At that pick, he'll actually be the biggest player taken. What are your thoughts about Myers Leonard and going to the Phoenix Suns?
Well, Myers Leonard has again the size. He's still raw though. He's still developing. He had a breakout year as a sophomore at Illinois, and trying to capitalize on that. And the things that he did well in the Big Ten, he was a great shot blocker. He was a pretty good rebounder, could do a better job on the boards, and he showed the ability to finish strong at the rim. Now, offensively, beyond finishing at the rim or close to it, he still needs to develop a little bit of a face-up game or a more consistent post move. But I could see him being very intriguing to a team like Phoenix, who I actually believe now is 13 because they're out of the playoffs, or a team like Houston who needs a center as well. Again, the thing you're doing, though, is you're taking him based on his potential. There are questions about his motor, about his focus. If he can put those to rest, though, I think some teams are going to be very excited to take him because, had he stuck around for his junior year and been more consistent and productive, you'd be talking about a top 10 pick guaranteed.
Well, it's interesting because the Suns are known and notorious for drafting very well, so I'm hoping this will work out for the Suns. They will be in a rebuilding situation, so it might take a few years for Myers Leonard really to show his potential. I want to go to the 29th pick according to this mock draft. Golden State is predicted to select Fab Melo out of Syracuse, also 7 feet tall, and Syracuse was the number 1 seed, and I could be wrong about this, but I feel like Fab Melo maybe should be a little higher. Why do you think he went down to 29, at least according to this mock draft?
Well, what you have to do when you're doing a mock draft is project based on not only team needs and tendencies when it comes to previous drafts, but you also have to look at, the players. And when you look at a guy like Fab Melo, no question about it, is he talented? Absolutely. But the problem he has is he's very raw offensively, so he's not going to give you much on that end of the court, at least right now. And in addition to that, there are a lot of red flags. He had some character questions, the suspensions, the dismissals due to academics, etc., that teams are going to have serious questions about. And when you get into the late 20s, the mid to late 20s, teams there are, contenders for titles. And so they're more or less projecting, guys who can come in and contribute right away on their bench. They don't want guys who are going to be projects. And so when you look at the teams that might have passed him up there, they might be passing him up because they don't have 2 years to wait on a prospect to develop and become a good center, because they're trying to win a title now. Whereas Golden State, who acquired that pick from San Antonio, is a lottery team, even though their pick belongs to Utah, and they will have more time. And they've got David Lee, they've got Andrew Bogut, two guys who are in the midst of their prime, and by the time Fad Melo might be ready to contribute, might be at the end of their primes, and so therefore Fad Melo could learn slowly behind them, develop, and then be ready to start by that time.
Absolutely, and a guy like Fad Melo, as you mentioned, I just want to tell listeners out there, looking at all these guys in the mock drafts, this guy only averaged about 7.4 points a game. So to have him go in the first round, like you said, a lot of talent coming out of high school in Brazil and all that, a lot of hype. He didn't really play at all his freshman year. The last year, I know he led the Big East in blocks, so that definitely helped him. But offensively, I mean, you're so right. He really, really struggled. If he had 12 or 15 points in a game, that was considered a huge game for him. So who knows? Maybe I'm still personally, I think he should have stayed another year. I'm not really sure why he left. If to go in the last pick of the first round or maybe even second round when you're only a sophomore, I'm not really sure about that. The last thing I want to ask you, we have about a minute left. Something I noticed by looking at a lot of these mock drafts, we're of course in Israel, and we're very big on international basketball, and there is almost no international prospects in this list, and that's something that in the last 10 years is now that's rare. I mean, last year there were, I think, 3 guys picked in the top 12, 2 guys picked in the top 6 from Lithuania and Serbia, I believe. But what do you think's going on here? Is this a bad year for the youngsters from Europe?
Yeah, it's a transitional year. I mean, you had, because of the impending lockout, so many college kids returned last year, so it was more advantageous for the international prospects to come out last year. So you had a higher than normal influx of that. So it's sort of balancing out this year. We have one projected first-round pick, Evan Fournier from France. He should be somewhere in the early to late 20s selected. And then, come the second round, there's going to be obviously more picks as people are stashed overseas to develop. So I think there's going to be less players, and they won't be drafted quite as high as people are accustomed to. But make no mistake. I mean, international basketball is still as strong as ever. It's just balancing out, and I think to some extent the scouts also have a harder time projecting international players now because there's so many leagues, players are all over, and they're not necessarily playing against equal talent at times.
All right, well, great stuff from you, Joe. We certainly appreciate the time today on Louis Live and IsraelSportsRadio.com, and we'll have to do it again pretty soon. Thank you for the time today.
Always, guys. Thank you for having me.
All right.
Absolutely.
Be well.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, so that was Joseph from, as we were discussing, the NBA draft, which is right around the corner. NFL draft, of course, is tonight, and will be a 4-day event. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to take a commercial break. Actually, no, we're going to stay here live. Our computer's going a little slow right now, so we'll have to wait till it freezes. But what are your thoughts about some of the things that Joe said regarding the NBA draft?
Yeah, he was right about everything. It's going to be a weird year for European talent. There's not going to be a lot of guys going. I know the French guy he was talking about, Evan, is a really good player. I've seen him play on TV a few times. A lot of talent. And with Fad Melo, I still think he should have stayed another year. I think a lot of the Kentucky guys could have stayed another year, maybe Marcus Teague. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. It should be a good draft. We appear to be having some technical difficulties.
Yes, we do right now, so we have to wait on that. We're just going to have to wait. I suppose what's interesting is, like I mentioned, the Suns are known for drafting very well.
Colangelo, right, is their president.
Yeah, Jerry Colangelo is still involved, and Robert Sarver, of course, is the owner, but Colangelo certainly put his inputs on it. Colangelo used to be the owner, of course, in the 90s, and arranged for Steve Nash to come. So, interesting situation with the Phoenix Suns and what they're going to do, because they are in a place where they're going to have to rebuild without Steve Nash, because most sources say he's gone. The question is when at this point. So, okay.
We're just having some problems with our...
We're going to try to play a song here and instead of a commercial and try to get Skype up. So
a song?
Yes, we're going to play a song for fun.
We're going to play a song.
Do you have a recommendation?
Do I have a recommendation? No, I do not have a recommendation. Wait, I think we're back.
I think the Skype just got back up.
All right,
okay.
We need to,
okay.
Sorry about that. We don't really know. This is the first time something like this has happened to us. I think we're back. We're back on. Our next guest is Adrian Banks, who is leading the Israeli league in points per game. And we're very excited to have him on. He plays for Balak Netanya. We're going to get his number right now. We're going to call him. We're going to talk to him for about, I think, 10 to 15 minutes. And then Ari and I are going to do our own special, I guess, preview of the draft.
And we will talk some NHL hockey as well.
Oh, of course.
And our guest who's our guest at 6 p.m.?
Our guest at 6 p.m. is a college football analyst who's going to talk to us about spring football. So,
okay.
But, we might only go 15 with him. We'll see. At Louis Live, we find time for everything.
That's right.
Everyone
absolutely.
should know that. But we're just looking up Adrian's number right now. This is going to be a fun interview. We've had a lot of the guys on this year, and this is one of the fan favorites, one of the better guys. Sorry, he's going to dial him up right now. This guy, like I said, is leading the league in points per game. I think he loves playing in Netanya. I'm going to talk to him about a controversial game he just played in against Habika. Anyway, here, it's dialing up. It's ringing.
Hello.
Hi, Adrian.
Yes.
Hey, Adrian. This is Ari Louis from Louis Live. You're live on Israel Sports Radio. How you doing out there?
I'm doing real good. How about you?
Doing great. It's great to have Adrian Banks on if people are just joining us. And we're going to begin the interview. Go ahead, Raphael.
Hi, Adrian. It's Raphael. I want to thank you for coming on again.
I'm very excited about this opportunity.
I wanted to ask you, I was watching a game of yours. I know it might not be something you want to talk about right off the bat, but that game that you guys just had, it was such a crazy, controversial game. You guys played so well. That three-pointer at the end was so great. I was rooting for you guys. What is it like just in the world of basketball when you play so hard, you make that comeback, and then honestly, let's be honest, you just lost because of a bad call by the ref. Like, that was the reason that happened.
Well, in that type of situation, we were also fighting for a playoff berth, and all my teammates, it's hard as us Americans and foreign players, with the end of the season coming along, people are thinking about going home and to use that type of energy and to play hard and be able to fight like that a whole game and be able to lose on a controversial call like that it's such a heartbreaker to us, It really takes everything out of you, and I couldn't sleep for actually a couple of days just after that game, just because of the feeling and how much energy I actually put out in trying to win.
Right, and of course, I know you're friends with some of the guys on that team, so that must have been kind of weird after to talk to them. And I know that the interview on the national TV, the guys were saying. From the other team, from Abika, they were saying, the call is a call. The ref made the call. The game's over. But, yeah, as you just said, it was a very tough game to watch. I was so excited when that three went in. And then I still, to this day, I don't really understand what happened. I don't think the refs do. I know that Doobie Pick from Eurobasket was reporting that the Israel League was going to look into maybe extending into overtime. I think that got denied, but it's just a tough, as you mentioned, it's a tough way for that to happen. But let's reflect on some positive things now. You guys are in that area where there's so many teams around. Of course, Maccabi Tel Aviv are like the main powerhouse teams, but around you got Cholon, you got Rishon LeZion, you got all those teams. But from what I hear, you guys have a very loyal fan base, and you have a lot of kids that are very excited about coming to watch you guys play. I know you've had a lot of times where the arena's been full, and in Israel that's pretty rare. So what has that been like for you playing for an organization like Barak Netanya, which for our listeners out there is owned by an American. So that's kind of also rare in Israel.
Right. Well, for me, coming back to Netanya, I've been here for 2 years, and the fan base and how loyal they are and how good they've treated me here is one of the reasons, and exactly one of the main reasons why I came back for a second season. Just the feeling here, it's very rare that an American, the opportunity to go abroad and, be able to play in the city and the country where you feel at home. It's actually times where I get annoyed with being here because it feels so much like home. And, when I think about it, that's actually a good feeling because it makes the player more comfortable. And I think you get more out of the player the more comfortable he feels. And them putting me in this situation, to be around such loyal people and loyal fans, I mean, it has really done a lot for my game. It's actually flourished in the last 2 years. The team hasn't done so well altogether, but, it was a new team just starting off their first couple of years in the first division. And I was just happy to be a part of this team and, to try to help them build a name for themselves in the top Premier League in Israel.
Right, and for our listeners out there, I believe as of right now, the regular season has ended, but as of right now, you are leading the league in points per game, and that's pretty impressive. I mean, for our listeners out there in America, there's a lot of competition here. I mean, Israel in the last 5-10 years has really gone from being a pretty good league. I mean, there used to be a point where Maccabi Tel Aviv was just so much better than everyone, and it wasn't even fun watching it. I mean, I remember growing up here in the 90s, just Maccabi against another team. It's just they won every year, but with the addition of Gilboa Galil, they've done a really great job. And even every team you look this year in the Premier League really was competitive. You guys had some good wins. Ashdod had some good wins. There's so many talented players in the league. So to lead, how does it feel to lead the league in points with all these ex-college stars from America being here?
It actually is a wonderful blessing for me. Every time somebody tells me about it and reminds me, I just smile about it. And, we've actually had a lot of NBA players come through this season, with the lockout being held and guys, wanting to play ball. I had a chance to play against a couple of good NBA players. Jordan Farmar was in Maccabi Tel Aviv. Jamal Williams was at Jerusalem. I just got a chance to play against their high-level competition and actually show people that I was able to handle myself and manage playing in such a good league like this. And Israel has really become one of the, toughest leagues every night. It's a tough game. Everybody can beat everybody. It's just about that time, and then when your team gets that rhythm. And in Israel, once you get that rhythm going, that's what decides, from first to last place here is their rhythm and the team chemistry. But each team has the same amount of talent on them, and on any night, anybody can be defeated over here.
Absolutely, and you guys started off the season pretty rough, but then you guys really started playing better, and just wanted to congratulate you on your season. I know that was a tough loss, but I mean, you gave it your best, and whatever happens. The next thing I wanted to talk to you about, we've been talking about all the great players playing in Israel. We've gotten to interview a lot of them: Courtney Fells, Alex Tice, Marco Killingsworth, Dwayne Mitchell. You are a guard for our listeners out there. Can you name a guy in the last 2 years that's been the most, I'll say hardest / most fun to guard for you personally? When you get on the court, you're very excited that you have to defend this guy.
Well, out of those guys you've just mentioned, I think Courtney Fells, the guy, he's a very versatile and he's a very long athlete, And as far as on offense and defense, he's been in a lot of trouble with me, with his length on defense, and then he uses it on offense, to post up smaller guards like myself, and he's a very tough guy to guard on the offensive side for a guard my size and in my ability, and also it's hard to attack him on the offensive end with his good defensive skills and his length, and he's able to play down low. And he's able to play around the perimeter. So I think over the past 2 years, he's been the one guy that, night in and night out that has been a tough guy for me to handle.
Right, and I know after the game, I'm completely blanking on the name right now. I'll remember it probably in 2 minutes. But a member of Habikah went to Twitter and said that no guy has played better than him than you did. I think you had. I don't remember how many points you had, but you dominated him really. I'm trying to think of who it is. Maybe do you know who I'm talking about? Is a guard. He guarded you in that last game.
Is it Frank Robinson?
Yeah, Frank Robinson, absolutely.
Yeah, me and him actually talked on Twitter, and he was telling a few guys he was happy the game was over because he was tired of chasing me around all night.
I saw that. I was following that. I mean, that's pretty special. A lot of those guys. I mean, as you mentioned, this I don't want to keep repeating myself, but for our listeners out there who aren't listening in Israel, it's really important for them to know this Israeli league is incredibly competitive from the bottom to the top. I mean, even the Haifa team that went through, I think, a 15-game losing streak, they almost beat Maccabi in that streak. They almost beat Hapoel Jerusalem. This league is incredibly talented, and it's really special to see that happen because, as I mentioned, 10 years ago, it was just Maccabi would beat everyone, and it wasn't fun to watch.
Sure.
The next thing I wanted to ask you about is being in Israel. Of course, you're from America. You went to college in America. You were born in America, raised in America. What has it been like culturally to be here? I know when we had Marco Killingsworth and Dwayne Mitchell on, we talked to them about all the rockets in the South, and that was very interesting to get that perspective from them. Of course, you're not going through that because you're in the central part of Israel, but what is it like day-to-day life in Netanya when you're not on the basketball court, when you're just hanging out or not practicing? What do you do?
Actually, every other I participate with an organization that Netanya is linked with called Hoops for Kids, where we go out with underprivileged Ethiopian kids. We go out to the schools and we actually play for them and spend a little time with them. Show them, be in touch with them and relate to them a little bit and show them that they can do things. And a lot of us have come from the same situations that they're in, as a young child. And I also do that. And I spend most of my time around the city. A lot of the fans recognize me daily walking throughout the city. And I enjoy just taking the pictures and being with the fans and just having the attention on me like that. And, knowing that kids are really looking up to me. It's pretty much what most of my days are filled with. Just being a normal person in Netanya, blending in and just being a good guy in the city of Netanya.
And with so many guys from America, I remember talking to Alex Sison saying that all you guys really look out for each other when you hang out with each other. You ask each other how everything is going, if you like your apartment. I mean, if there's any problems that you can help each other out with. Have you developed any friendships or relationships with any of the guys, the American guys from your team and from other teams, maybe?
Well, yeah, actually, one of my teammates this year, Brian Osbury.
Right.
I built a really strong connection with the guy. He's a little younger than me, and I've been in Europe playing abroad a couple of years, so the times are kind of changing. I'm kind of becoming a veteran player now. I'm in that transition, so this year I reached out to a player, and he's reached out to me, and we've been very good friends throughout this whole season. Very loyal to each other, and not just saying as people, but as far as on the court, being a loyal partner on the court, and we knowing each other's roles and what we can do to make each other better players and put each other in better positions. And he's been a great help to me and a great addition to this team this year. And he's been really actually a very good friend and a guy who I plan on actually hanging out with when I get to America this summer.
Right, and that's another thing I wanted to ask you about. So the season's pretty much over. It's about to be over. What do you do in the off season? I know you go. Obviously, you guys go back to America because you want to be with your family, your friends, and all that. But do you guys still keep up the training? Do you guys still work out every day and get ready for the upcoming season? Because in Israel, it starts early, unlike in other places in the world. I mean, you got to be back, I think, in September, October to get going.
Right. Well, actually, in the summertime, I get together with a few of the guys. Memphis. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee.
Right.
We've had a lot of great basketball players come from this city. Who also playing abroad and even in the NBA. And we come home together and we all get together and we play. In a semi-pro league in the summertime, which is a very good way to to play with some guys who are on the same level as you, and learn a few things. And we also travel and, work out with other guys, and we keep that connection together throughout the whole summer. And I'm actually one of those guys who likes to come back over to the country a little bit earlier than most Americans. This past year I came back like almost almost a month earlier. You know, I just wanted to practice with the Israeli players and, you know, try to get in a little better shape because it's a totally different type of working out when you're actually here working and when you're at home on your own time. You know, it's very different. You know, you see things different. But when you're over here, it's a whole other level, and I actually like to prepare myself for each season a little bit ahead of time.
Right, and I got to ask, obviously this is Israel, so there's Israeli players as well. What is it like interacting with the Israelis? Of course, the coaches are all Israeli, that is. On your team, you have Lior Lifshitz. What is it like playing with him? How is the communication bear? I mean, obviously, I know they all know English, but do you ever have times where you're like, oh man, I just wish he understood what I was saying, or is it not like that?
Well, yeah, there are always going to be those times, you know, especially the very different type of English I speak. You know, me being a young Black American, you know, I'm into the hip hop type of slang, and
right.
But no, the guys, the Israeli teammates I have these past 2 years, they have been some of the best guys and the biggest help to me on and off the court. And most of the time they understand what I'm saying. I have to slow down a little bit and talk to them and maybe say something twice.
Right.
But they've actually took the time to learn me and to learn my feelings and my emotions. You know, they can actually see a look on my face and know when something's not right, when something's wrong, you know. And we have that kind of communication. It's like a brotherhood. And I've been here for 2 years, so it's really like I'm brothers with all of them. I'm friends with even some of the Israeli players who don't even play with me anymore.
Wow.
You know, I've built a lot of friendships with them more than others because they're the ones that actually live here and, you know, spend the time to help me when I need things.
Ari and I were at the All-Star game, which I believe was only the second All-Star game in the history of the league, so it really shows how things are developing here in Israel. What was it like playing against, I mean, I guess that never really happens when you get to play against all the best players from Israel and America. And the question I got to ask you, which is kind of funny, and it's not supposed to be a mean thing to say, but the Israelis won in the dunk contest, the three-point contest, and in the game. So it shows that those guys have some talent too, right?
Right. They definitely do. I mean, the guys over here are very well aware of the skill level and the talent level that the foreigners bring, not only from America but from other countries, and they work just as hard as we do. You know, every day they're the first ones in the gym and the last ones to leave, and they're the ones shooting the extra shots. You know, nobody sees them. You know, and these guys really put the time in to be some of the best athletes in the world in the country and do the same thing as us Americans do.
Right, and we have about 2 questions left. The thing I want to ask, and I know you're a Memphis guy. I'm not sure if you're a Grizzlies guy. I hope you are, because that's what my question's about to be. Are you a Grizzlies guy?
Yes, I definitely am a Grizzlies fan.
Great. So this team is kind of the dark horse that is right now, the 5th seed in the West. Last year they got so close. This year they have Rudy Gay back from that shoulder injury. Even Jeremy Pargo, I believe, who was playing basketball for Maccabi Tel Aviv last year, is playing with them, so that's pretty cool. They have a very explosive team, Zach Randolph. They lost Badia, but they've replaced him with a couple of good guys. This team's dangerous. Do you think they can maybe shock some people and get to the finals?
I think they can. Actually, last season I stayed up every night till at like 4 a.m. trying to watch the playoff game in the series. I saw the series against them in San Antonio and the one last year against the Thunder, and I really am excited about them and the way they've been playing. I think they really have a chance to do even better than they did last season. I'm ready to get home. I hope they're still playing when I get home. I would like to catch a game or two, so I'm really rooting for the home team.
Right, and hopefully by the time, I know that you stay up late. I talked to you, I think, once at 4 a.m, so it was good to see. I'm the type of guy who I watched every college basketball game that was exciting at 4 a.m. I love my American sports, and I'll be staying up to watch the playoffs. So if you're ever in Jerusalem, Adrian, you want to come watch some NBA playoffs at 4 a.m, you're welcome to come on over.
No problem. I definitely had a free time, so I'll probably take you up on that.
All right, sounds good.
Adrian, last question before we let you go. What is next for Adrian Banks?
Next for Adrian Banks is to step up to a higher level, play in the European basketball world, and actually this year try to put my talents at a higher level and show everybody that I'm ready to become that good European basketball player that I expect myself to be.
All right, so your goal is to take your talents to a higher level.
yes, I would like to get back into playing into the European League, whether it be Euro Cup, Euro Challenge, Euro League. I just would like to get back into the European basketball world at a high level.
Okay, great. Well, best of luck in that. We certainly hope you do that, and we appreciate your time today on Louis Live and Israel Sports Radio, and we hope you come on again in the future.
All right, thank you very much for having me.
All right,
Thank
be well,
you,
Adrian.
Thanks.
Uh-huh.
All right, that was Adrian Banks. What we're going to do now is we're going to take a commercial break because we're a little due, and then after all that, we'll bring on our next guest. You're listening to Louis Live and IsraelSportsRadio.com.
You're tuned in to the only all-sports talk network in the Middle East, IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Body and Soul Gym in the heart of Talpiot. Great machines, excellent staff, and wonderful classes such as Pilates, yoga, and kickboxing. Give them a call at 02-678-8861. Once again, that's 02-678-8861. www.body-soul.co.il. Once again, that's www.body-soul.co.il. That's Body and Soul in the heart of Talpiot, which is great for your body and your soul.
You're already using a credit card every day. Why not feel good every time you make a purchase? When using the HAS Advantage Support Israel Visa card, a percentage of each purchase you make will be donated to your choice of 24 Israeli-based charities, while still earning a reward point for every dollar spent. But wait, these rewards are even better than the standard rewards you get, especially when using them towards Israel travel, with the best conversion rate on El Al's Matmeed Frequent Flyer program. Earn double points at some of your favorite supermarkets and restaurants in the U.S., as well as discounts all over Israel. If you love traveling and supporting Israel, HAS Advantage is the card for you. Just give us a call toll-free at 1-866-6-ISRAEL. Sign up right now with the code ISR10 to earn 2,500 bonus points. That's 1-866-647-7235. HAS Advantage. Earn rewards. Support Israel. Offer valid for U.S. citizens only. Terms and conditions do apply. When dialing from within Israel, please dial 1-800-200-818.
Israel Sports Dynamics specializes in football consulting, equipment, uniforms, and more. Great brands such as Nike, Russell Athletics, Shutt Sports Products, and many more. Just one call away. With over 30 years coaching experience with university and professional athletes, Terry Hill, owner of ISD, can advise you for all your sports needs. Call 054-581-3248. That's 054-581-3248, or visit our website at www.isdisrael.com. If that's not easy enough, click on the ISD banner on the Israel Sports Radio website and be part of the game.
Are you tired of paying for expensive gym memberships that you don't use? Are you frustrated by not seeing results? It's time for the X1. Israel Gym Systems is proud to launch the X1 suspension and bodyweight training system. Lose weight, build muscle, improve balance, coordination, and flexibility. With your purchase of the X1, you'll receive a free membership to IsraelGym.com and access to our archives of videos and exercise plans. Sign up today at www.israelgym.com and get ready for the new you. Israel Gym X1. Higia Hazman.
DJ Venom, DJ Venom, DJ Venom, DJing parties throughout Israel, birthday parties, weddings, club events, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, and much more. You pick the type of music and DJ Venom will turn your event into the party of the year. Available Sunday through Thursday. Call 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. That's 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. Book your party today. That's DJ Venom.
Broadcasting live from Israel.
IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Back here on Louis Live, thanks to Adrian Banks from Barak Natalia coming on. And before we go to our next guest, I want to play a funny little clip, and we'll talk a little about it and have some amusement. I was thinking we've had so many people from ESPN. Why not make fun of them a little bit?
Poke at them.
This is not the best sound here. It's funny because this is what they put on Yahoo. Here, 1 second.
Let's restart, I think.
Let's see here. All right, let's listen very closely, and we'll try to make this out.
All right, SportsCenter rolls along live alongside Sage Steele. I'm Steve Weissman. That was a really fun SportsCenter.
Awesome.
A little flirting with Wes Welker there.
Excuse me?
Just saying. Lots to get to this hour, including Roger Goodell.
He said a little flirty with Wes Welker. She goes, "Excuse me," so she was serious about that. That was pretty funny.
You know what? With the way things have worked with ESPN and sexual harassment and all that guy can get fired. You laugh at me, Ari, but it's possible. With stuff like this, they take this stuff so seriously. Maybe not fired, but suspended. I know Tony Kornheiser got suspended for making a comment like that a couple of years ago. Bob Ryan from Around the Horn. A lot of stuff.
Yeah, people do got to be careful. All right, and moving on to story. Larry Brown was on the Dan Patrick Show to discuss Michael Jordan as, quote, spies.
Right, this is pretty funny.
So, I just couldn't believe it because, I love the guy. I think he's brilliant, but he's around people that don't have a clue. And they won't challenge him, and the more you challenge him, the more you get from him because he knows. And I was sick about it. I hadn't spoken to him since. I don't like seeing what's going on. And you're right about Paul Silas. He's a class act who can coach. And they got some great young kids there. DJ and Gerald Henderson, Tyrus Thomas, who's been struggling.
So that was Larry Brown because Larry Brown, of course, now with SMU, used to be with the Bobcats. Actually, he's the only coach in Bobcats history to take them to the playoffs.
That team was 44-38, I believe. Steven Jackson, Gerald Wallace, Emeka Okafor. Think of now they're Kemba Walker and ... That's it. So Michael Jordan, I don't know what he's done here. Who did we have on? Was it Ari Russell? One of those outrageous funny guys that we love, who said that Michael Jordan should earn the award for best owner in the worst owner in the history.
Probably Ari Russell.
Yeah,
I think it was Ari Russell said that.
Say. I agree with him. I mean, he ruined this team. This team was a 7-6 seed in the playoffs under Brown. He fired Brown because that wasn't good enough. I mean, I don't know how you're gonna do much better than that with the Bobcats, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Well, the first thing it is hard to trust Larry Brown because he is coached everywhere and it seems to always have problems.
Right.
With someone, you had a problem with Iverson with the Sixers. You had a problem with Isaiah Thomas in New York. So I question a little bit, but I do agree with Charles Barkley. I think MJ is surrounded by yes men. And I do agree with Larry Brown's assessment that people don't challenge him as an owner. That's why I think he's so bad. As a player, people challenge him all the time.
Right. Really good point, Ari. They were talking about how, as a player, when someone challenged him, it would be game over. If someone said, "I bet you can't make 100 3-pointers in a row," he would stay in the gym for 40 hours in a row and do it. I mean, this guy. There was no better a guy with a better work ethic, I think, in the NBA.
And it's weird because Larry Brown says he doesn't have a good work ethic as an owner, so I thought that was really weird when I read that article. Right. And remember, in the late 80s, it looked like MJ wasn't going to win a title. People said he was too selfish and that he just cared about scoring and not winning. And, he got 6 titles after all those criticisms. People tend to forget that. All right, we're going to dial up our next guest. And he is Jerry DiNardo. Raphael, tell us a little bit about
Jerry
him.
DiNardo has been a head coach at Indiana University, Louisiana State University. So, big programs. He's now an analyst on the Big Ten Network, which is a great network for our listeners who are listening out there in the Big Ten region, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Indiana.
Hello.
Hi, is this Jerry?
It is.
Hi, Jerry DiNardo. You're live on Louis Live and IsraelSportsRadio.com. How you doing out there?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Doing wonderful, and kind of want to get right into it. We see a story here that the late Joe Paterno is going to be awarded the Enberg Award, and you coached against him. What was that like to go up against Joe Pa while he was coach at Penn State?
Well, Joe was really a special guy in college football. I went to a rival high school in Brooklyn, New York, and followed Joe his whole career, even when I was in high school and then college. So it's always been a thrill to be around Joe. He's a special guy. I feel awful the way his career ended. I feel awful the way his life ended. But he made so many positive contributions, and hopefully people will remember that.
Hi, Jerry. You're on right now with Raphael. I wanted to thank you again for coming on.
Good to be with you guys. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. We're very honored to have you on. You obviously work for the Big Ten Network, so most of the football you cover is Big Ten Network, but I did want to get your opinion on everything that happened in Arkansas. Not necessarily all the details about the woman, that's not really important, but just Do you agree with that he got fired? Do you like the new hire? Do you like how they brought in the new coach, who, of course, was at Michigan State for a bit and now is the new head coach? He got a 10-month interim tag. Just what do you think about everything that went down in Fayetteville?
Well, I didn't follow it really close, but I would say Jeff Long, the athletic director, from what I could tell from the outside looking in, made the right decision. Guys, it's hard to lead young people. It's hard to lead, but it's especially hard to lead young people and demand or ask them to do the right thing, and you're not doing the right thing yourself. And so to tell a player on your team, make sure you go to class, to tell a player, make sure you're doing the right things off the field, and then for you not to be doing the same thing in your life undermines your authority and your leadership. So from that perspective, in general terms, I would say Jeff Long, the athletic director at Arkansas, made the right decision. I know John L. a little bit. I don't know him well. He was in the Big Ten. I followed him. I remember when he was at Louisville. I remember when he came into the Big Ten. I was also coaching in the Big Ten. I think it's a good hire. I think hires are always relative to who else was available and who else would take this interim position, who else knew the team like John L. knew the team. There's probably very few people. So I would say in that regard, it was probably a very good hire. I do feel bad for Weber State. He just left Weber State, which is his alma mater, in a terrible time, and so someone's gained, someone else's lost. So I think Arkansas made a good decision, and I think that Weber State probably got the wrong end of the deal.
All right, Jerry, I want to go to your personal playing career in college football because it's funny. I was a Jewish kid growing up. I'm still Jewish, of course, but I was a Jewish kid in Phoenix, Arizona, and I became a huge fan of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I know people thought it was kind of weird, a Jew like in an Irish Catholic school, but I did. I still am a fan favorite of them, and you were on the 73 championship team, and you apparently went against Rudy Rudiger in practice. Tell us a little about that, what that was like.
Well, before I say that, the woman on top of the dome is Jewish, so
okay.
we are connected.
Okay, great.
Rudy was a great friend. He was a year behind us, although he's older. I have to say that because he went into the service, as you call in the movie. He went into the service before he started college, and he was at Holy Cross, and the part of the movie that I lived through, which was through the end of his junior year. I had left the year he played. The accuracy of the movie up until when I was there, which is the end of Rudy's junior year, was certainly very accurate. And we certainly did go against him, and certainly the part of the movie that portrays him as a total pain in the butt during practice, which a guy who's starting, a guy who's getting ready for a game, really doesn't want to put up with some scout team player trying to ruin his day. But that's his job. He was very good at it, and it's a wonderful, wonderful story. And Rudy's a good guy, and I'm glad good things have come to him.
And just tell us, I've never been to Notre Dame Stadium. It's one of the stadiums that are still on my list to go to at some point. I would like to go. What was that like? Saturday morning, Notre Dame Stadium, packed house of 75,000, 100,000 people, the tradition of the Fighting Irish, Newt Rodney, all that stuff. You just got to – please tell me what that was like.
It was a great experience. I played for a great coach, Ari Louis. I played in his last game. We won the national championship my junior year. We only lost 5 games my entire time there. The crowds were rocking. Spring game, in those days it was the biggest crowd of any spring games. Now it's of course different because now people are filling their stadiums, and their name's not the biggest stadium. But it was truly a great experience because of my teammates, because of Ari Louis. It's something that I'll treasure forever, and I'll be linked to the university forever because of that. But Ari made it special. I think coaching and playing, it has a lot to do with timing, and I'm glad I played in Ari's last games. I played at the end of his career. He was only 52 years old, and he walked away from obviously breaking Rockley's record the next season, maybe 2 more seasons, but most likely the next season. So I was there at a very special time, and I've always appreciated it.
Jerry, now I know that, again, you work for the Big Ten Network. There's one more question I wanted to ask you before we get right into the Big Ten Network. Matt Barkley, of course, returning to USC. How big of a thing is that for that school? I mean, are they the front runners now to win the national championship this upcoming year?
Well, they're certainly a front runner to be in the hunt and perhaps to be rated 1, 2, or 3. I think when a guy like Barkley comes back, I think it's great for college football. I think it's the right decision if the person thinks that it's the right decision for him and his family. I don't think that college football should own these players. In fact, I would loosen the rules probably even more. In fact, I'm in favor of, and I've written an article that's been in the New York Times about why can't football players go right from high school to the leagues, whether it's an intermediary stop between high school and the NFL. A musician can go to college and leave after freshman year and be in the Metropolitan Opera. We see baseball players, we see hockey players, we see basketball players. So I'm all in favor of that. And yet, to answer your question, when Matt Barkley wants to stay, I'm in favor of that as well. I think he's a fabulous player. I think it's a great thing for USC. I think it's a great thing for college football. And I hope he has a great season. I hope he comes out of the season healthy. That's the only issue that I'm hesitant about when someone comes back. Whether he wins all his games or most of his games, we'll have to wait and see. But I do hope that he comes out of the season healthy.
Right, and the next thing I want to talk to you about, of course, I lived in Bloomington for a little while, and I wanted to ask you how, I know you're Italian as it gets, you can tell by your name, you're from New York. I wanted to ask, how does a football coach get involved in the restaurant business?
It's funny, when I made this date to be on the radio with you guys today, I was in Destin, Florida. I had no idea where I'd be, but I knew I was going to clear the day. I'm actually sitting in my restaurant right now. I left 5:30 this morning, Central Time in Chicago, and got here a little bit ago in Bloomington. I was actually sitting in my restaurant office. I've always been fascinated by food, culturally, because growing up Italian, and I had a restaurant experience in Baton Rouge. My restaurant partner was the largest Ruth Chris franchiser in the country, and we took my Italian expertise and his steak expertise and put together an Italian restaurant in Baton Rouge, and it was a huge success. It still is a huge success. And so we came to Bloomington. I said to my wife, this is my last stop. I'm not coaching. This is going to be my last coaching stop. Let's open up a restaurant, and when I'm done coaching after a long, successful career in Indiana, I'll do broadcasting, and you'll run the restaurant. Well, I didn't know that long, successful career was going to turn into 3 years, and I'm not sure how successful it was, but I still have the restaurant. We're in our 9th year, and I'm here a lot. I love it. We've got a great, very loyal guest group, and we open up every day, and just like a football game, we try to win every day.
Absolutely, and I'll tell you, Jerry, I was in America this summer for surgery on my arm, and we made a pit stop in Bloomington, and my family, we had to go to D'Angelo's, that is, sorry, and my mom has always been a huge favorite. She'd go every Monday. We lived in that area. We lived next to the College Mall, so I just had to bring that into the interview. I know it's kind of random, but I had to talk about that with you.
Well, thank you. Every time I get a chance to talk about the restaurant, I appreciate it, so thank you.
You can tell people that your restaurant is known around the world.
Very good, thanks.
The next thing I want to talk to you, now we're going to get into some Big Ten football, because like I said, I'm an Indiana guy. It's hard to win at Indiana. It's a tough place to do well. Last year was a disaster. Let's be honest. 0-8, 1-11, losing to North Texas. I have a lot of people I know in Bloomington. People were very disappointed. Of course, Kevin Wilson came from Oklahoma. He was the offensive coordinator. Worked with Sam Bradford. People were expecting big things. The quarterback issue was a problem all year. They kind of settled it at the end of the year. We do have a lot of listeners in Bloomington, so what do you think needs to happen for Indiana to turn this around and maybe, let's say, even go 500 this year?
Well, I think it's obviously a process. I don't know that they can go 500 this year, but they certainly can make improvement. I mean, big picture, I think that you have to give a coach 5 years here to just get his speed cell. And I made this comment on Tuesday night's show at the network about Michigan State. One of the reasons Michigan State has the best defense in the conference is Mark D'Antonio's been there 5 years. There's only 3 other coaches in the Big Ten that have been at their place for 5 years: Kurt Ferentz, Pat Fitzgerald, and Brett Bielema. And Mark D'Antonio is the 4th. And for Kevin Wilson, just to get a settled roster is going to take 5 years. To build a solid program is going to take 10 years. Now, it may be 10 years. You know, if Kevin Wilson turns it around in 5 years and leaves, the next coach has to continue to develop it. But it's going to be 10 years, whether it's one coach or 2 successful coaches back to back. It has to be 10 years of successful coaching, not only measured by the record. Okay, so back to this year, they have to show improvement. I think Trey Roberson is going to be their quarterback.
Right.
Their schedule is a bad schedule. You don't play Navy. You don't play non-BCS teams off your campus. I mean, the one thing that they haven't done to fix this thing is to fix the schedule. The facility's wonderful. As you know, it's a wonderful town.
Right.
It's a wonderful university. There's a ton of positives. You can argue whether the basketball team on the rise helps or hurts, but that's an argument that's been going on forever at North Carolina, at Indiana, at certain places. So that issue is not really an issue. The biggest issue that faces Indiana football right now is they've got to get their schedule in a way that they can win 6 games. They've got to win all 4 non-conference games and win 2 conference games. That's where it starts, and then they can build from there.
Right, and you know what, Jerry? It worked. Let's be honest. It worked at North Carolina with Butch Davisford. They had a couple teams that were ranked. They had some good players. Hakeem Nicks, who's now in the Giants, a good wide receiver. So the whole argument that you just mentioned about the basketball program, blah, 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 that worked in North Carolina. Of course, Davis got in trouble with NCAA and is not there now. The next guy or team I want to talk to you about is Mark D'Antonio. You mentioned him a little earlier. He has done an amazing job at Michigan State the last few years. I mean, this school was known as Tom Izzo's school, a basketball school. Of course, Magic Johnson in the late 70s, early 80s. But he's really made this Michigan State team into a Big Ten contender. What do you think about the job he's done there?
Well, I'm a huge fan of Mark D'Antonio, and I've never really been a Michigan State fan. I mean, when I was in college, it was one of our rivals, and when I was at Colorado, we played against them, and when I was at Indiana, we obviously played against them. But I think the school's terrific. I think if you look at the major players, Mark Hollis, the athletic director, Susie coaching the women's team, Tom coaching the men's team, and now Mark D'Antonio, you're going to be hard-pressed to find what I consider 4 superstars in one athletic department. I don't even know the other sports, and I should, but I don't. I mean, those three to that athletic director, you'd be hard-pressed to find a better 4 combination. So I think that's one thing. And they know they have to stick together. Part of Michigan State's answer to their challenges is that those 4 people are on the same page, and they certainly are. What Mark D'Antonio has done for Michigan State football, big picture, is he has brought consistency to an historic, inconsistent program. Michigan State's always been up and down. It's how can we shoot ourselves in the foot next time? It's the same old Michigan State. All those sayings that historically have been tagged to the Michigan State football program, Mark D'Antonio's personality is the opposite. Most of the times you don't know whether he's won or lost the game. Most of the time he is even-keeled. He can bring consistency.
Welcome to the Axe Combine.
And so I think that's been the secret to his success, the basis of his success. There's a lot of other things that have made him successful.
All right, I want to go to Urban Meyer, the hire out at Ohio State. You know, people beat up Tim Tebow going to the Jets. Well, the guy that coached Tebow with those championships and the Heisman Trophy at Florida, Urban Meyer, goes on to Ohio State, coach of the Buckeyes, and they're in a bit of a struggle. You know, passing yards last year, 115th overall. How could Urban turn this around and make Ohio State a successful program as it was in the past with Tressel back in the day?
Well, it'll be a successful program like it was with Tressel. Now, what they're going to do offensively, I think, is still up in the air. It'll be interesting. I labeled Urban Meyer when he got the Ohio State job as the first rock star that the Big Ten ever hired. Now, the Big Ten has had rock stars. Woody Hayes was a rock star. Bo Schembechler was a rock star. But they became rock stars after they got to Columbus and Ann Arbor. They both came from Miami of Ohio. But Urban's the first rock star hire, and it's paid dividends immediately in recruiting Brady Hoke is becoming a rock star. And these two guys are separating themselves from the rest of the Big Ten in recruiting. So that's why Urban's going to be successful. I can't tell you what the offense is going to look like. I'm not sure Urban knows exactly what the offense is going to look like. But here's the kind of guy he is. Think about this. I don't know if you guys watched the spring game. He said for the spring game last Saturday that they were going to throw it 3 times for every time they ran it. And he said, because we're going to work on the passing game today. How many coaches would say, I don't care if there's 80,000 people here, this isn't necessarily what we're going to look like, but this is today's goal, this is today's focus, and that's all we're going to do. That's a guy who's got a great plan, great confidence in what he's doing, and great experience.
Okay, the next team I want to talk to you about is Iowa, who's been led by Kirk Ferentz since 1999. He's had some amazing years. There are 2 Big Ten championships in 2002 and 2004. They still had some good years in the last few years, but I don't know how to word this, but do you feel like his time's kind of just there's not much more for him to accomplish there, and that he's been linked to a lot of NFL jobs and a lot of other college jobs? He makes a pretty good amount of money there. I know he's happy there. He's been in the NFL. He was at Maine, which I believe you were at Maine as well. So, I mean, what do you think is keeping him in Iowa? Is this a guy who's going to be there for another 20 years, or what's going on with Kirk?
Well, it's an interesting question, and I don't know that there's a simple answer. I do think there's always a possibility Kirk could get up and leave, go to the NFL. He's been offered jobs by other colleges. I think the one thing that is so unique, and it's hard for the three of us maybe to put a value on this, but how about this? And this may be the first time this has ever happened in the history of college football. His son is the starting center, James Ferentz. His offensive line coach is his oldest son, Brian Ferentz. And I said to him at spring practice a couple weeks ago, I said, Kirk, I said, tell me that this isn't the kick of a lifetime, that you come to work every day and you're coaching one of your sons and one of your sons is working for you. And, of course, Brian, the coach, already played for him. So I don't know if you can put a value on that. I don't know that somebody would walk away from that experience because I think you guys probably know this, but as coaches, we're never home.
Right.
Sometimes we have a lot of guilt about leaving our families and going to take care of other children and not maybe spending enough time with our own children. And so this is a unique experience. How that plays into his decision, I have no idea. I got to tell you. If it were me, I'd think about leaving that experience.
Right, and the next team I want to talk about in the Big Ten, Nebraska, they have a brutal schedule coming up this year. I was looking at it. Southern Miss and UCLA. I mean, Southern Miss, it's Mississippi. They're always going to have a good team. UCLA, of course, has a new coach, Jim Morris. So a lot of great things are going to go on there. Arkansas State, Idaho State are easy wins. But then they have a stretch where they play Wisconsin, Ohio State, and Michigan within a month. And then Michigan State within – so they play these 4 teams within 5 weeks. Oh, wow, and even Penn State. So 5 teams within 6 weeks are very, very good teams. A lot of people have been waiting for Nebraska to break out. They've had a lot of good years. I mean, 9-4 and all that kind of stuff, and 10-4, that kind of wins. But, I mean, I think our fans starting to get a little impatient. I mean, when the coach came from LSU, I think people were expecting them to be dominant immediately, and it's kind of been taking some time. They lost last year to Wisconsin a couple times. Of course, Wisconsin was great last year with Russell Wilson and Ball. What do you think about Nebraska? I mean, what do you think about their schedule and what's going to happen this year for them?
Well, I think they'll be in the Legends Division hunt. I think along with Michigan State, Michigan, and Nebraska, they'll be the 3 teams favored for the Legends. The Nebraska job's an interesting job. For years and years, Tom Osborne was there. Before him, Bob Devaney. And it was them in Oklahoma in the Big 8, and then they went to the Big 12. And they were a machine. I mean, nobody had the resources they had. They were national recruiting. And then they took a little bit of a step down a little bit with the Big 12. And now they're in the Big 10. I think maybe we all underestimated how difficult it was a year ago preparing for 8 new teams that they didn't know much about. I think Bo Pelini has a much tougher job than Tom Osborne had, than Bob Devaney had. And I think the fans are judging him on Osborne's standards. And I think it's a little bit unfair. It's a little bit harsh. Having said that, I think the longer they're in the Big Ten, they'll start to get their feet on the ground on the landscape. I still think the one thing that Bo and the staff are still trying to figure out is where is our recruiting base. When they were in the Big 8 and Tom Osborne was rocking and rolling, it was national. When they were in the Big 12, because of its strong Texas presence in the Big 12, they recruited into Texas quite a bit. Now, their world's been turned upside down. I'm not sure what their recruiting niche is. My guess is they'll go back to a national recruiting niche. But depending on how soon they find their niche, that'll depend on how successful they are and how soon they're successful.
Okay, we have about a few minutes left, so let's talk about a new coach. Or, let's get to that in a minute. Penn State, he's also a new coach, coming from New England, been working with Brady, the offensive coordinator, the quarterback coach. When you heard of this hire, were you kind of shocked that Penn State didn't go from the family? I mean, there's a lot of great guys who have played there who could have maybe gotten the gig. I mean, I'm a hardcore New England fan. I'm actually excited about this because I wasn't the biggest fan of O'Brien. And, of course, Josh McDaniels now is going to be taking his position. I'd much rather have McDaniels than O'Brien personally as a Patriot fan. But, I mean, is O'Brien the right guy to lead this Penn State program after Joe Pa for 45 years?
Well, we're going to find out. Anyone following Joe under normal circumstances was going to be difficult. Following Joe under the circumstances of the Sandusky scandal makes it even more difficult. I will say this. I've been around Bill a lot. I did a sit-down piece with him, spent a day with him. I've been to a spring practice. I really like him. I think Dave Joyner, the athletic director, probably when he met with Bill, one of the things that jumped out is this is the perfect personality, perfect guy, the way he carries himself to take over for Joe. He's a football guy. He's a blue-collar guy. He's a guy that doesn't pretend to be anything but a football guy. So I think personality-wise and fit-wise, I think it absolutely works. Now, again, when you follow someone like Joe Paterno, no matter what you do, might not be good enough. But I've been impressed every time I've been around Bill O'Brien. I certainly wish him the best.
Okay, and now we'll get to the other new coach, Tim Beckman, that is, who's joined Illinois. Ron Zook got fired. You got to feel bad for the guy. They started off 6-0. A lot of fans in Illinois were very excited, and then they just lost. I mean, straight up they lost. He's coming from Toledo. He built a nice program there in the MAC. The MAC's always had some really competitive teams. Of course, Coach Hepp, may rest in peace, came from Miami, Ohio, and he coached Ben Roethlisberger. So there's always been some great talent in the MAC. This is an interesting hire. I know Illinois fans were kind of expecting a bigger name. He was only at Toledo for 3 years. And if you look at I know he's been at Ohio State, Auburn, and some other big schools, but not as big positions. So, I mean, what are you expecting from this Illini team this upcoming year?
Well, I think they'll have their struggles. I don't think this is one of the Ron Zook's most talented rosters that he's left Tim Beckman. I think big picture, we've talked about Indiana. One of the great stories about Indiana is they fired Bill Mallory because he wasn't going to big enough bowl games. They still haven't recovered. And Ron Zook won 2 bowl games back-to-back for the first time in the history of the University of Illinois. So you do something positive for the first time in the history of Illinois, and you get fired. And I say all that, and I use Indiana as an example, is that these universities have to come to some grips with what their expectations are. Now, when Mike Thomas, the athletic director, fired Ron Zook, he said they weren't winning enough conference games. Well, I get that. I mean, we all want to win a lot of conference games. When you look at Illinois' division, the leaders division, Ohio State's in it, Penn State's in it, and Wisconsin's in it. Okay, so is Purdue and Indiana. So if I'm Illinois and I'm doing the very best I can do with Illinois, in other words, I am maximizing my resources, doesn't it kind of depend if Ohio State is maximizing their resources, if Penn State is maximizing their resources, and if Wisconsin is maximizing their resources? So add Illinois to those 3. So Ohio State, Wisconsin, Penn State, and Illinois are all maximizing their resources. That means that they are rocking and rolling. They got great coaches. They're doing everything right. Is Illinois the 4th best job in the leaders division? It might be. And so I think that's what the challenge to Tim Beckman is. He's got to win more conference games if he wants to keep his job. And I think if he wins more, depending on what the other teams in his division are doing, will have something to do. He only impacts half the equation. The other half of the equation is out of his control. Whereas Urban Meyer, the half that he controls, you'd have difficulty finding that half.
Okay, well, this has been so great that we only have time for one more team to talk about in the Big Ten, and we kind of touched on this a little earlier, but the Michigan Wolverines, led by Brady Hoke, who, of course, had that really magical year with Ball State. I actually I don't remember. I think I was at that game, Ball State against Indiana, when Dante Love, their leading receiver, that is, from Ball State, got hit. Ended up, I think, retiring after that because he had so much problems with his back. But you look at Brady Hoke's career since 2003, and he kind of struggled his first 5 years at Ball State. Then he had that magical year. Then he left for San Diego State. Then he had a not such a good year in San Diego State. Then he had a great year. Then last year he had for Michigan, 11-2 is not the best thing in the world, but it's still pretty good, and they won the Sugar Bowl. Do you expect a lot of big things? Should the Wolverines be really, really excited about this upcoming year?
I expect a lot of big things from Brady in Michigan, but not necessarily in 2012. Their schedule's a little bit more difficult. I think the fact that their offense is so dependent on Denard that any team that depends on one player that much is very fragile. If something would happen to Denard, they would struggle to win the Legends. And so I do think this. I think Brady Hoke will be in the national championship picture more than one time during his career at Michigan. I don't think it'll be a great 2012. I think they're not as good up front defensively, losing Mike Martin. I don't think they're as good offensively up front. But they're going to have a good team. They're going to compete with the Legends. But the way they are recruiting and the way Urban is recruiting, I never thought I would say this, but it could be the Big Two and Little Ten. I never thought that those days would come back, but unless the other teams start recruiting like Michigan, Ohio State, there may be a separation after the second team. So I think Brady's great. I think he's going to do great things. I think it could be a little bit of a struggle 2012. Second years are always challenges because the first year every kid on the team buys in. Then the second year the kids that figure out that they're not part of the new staff plan, they kind of tone it down a little bit. So sometimes you have some locker room issues. Sometimes you have some motivational issues. But basically, I think Brady's great. He's going to do great things there, and 2012 will be good, not great.
All right, Jared, we certainly appreciate the time today. It's been so much fun here on Louis Live. We'd love to have you back. What do you say? Coming back on another time? Would that be all right with you?
Give me a call anytime, guys. You have my email, my phone number. I'm always around, always willing. If you're willing to work with my schedule, we'll do it again.
Absolutely. We had a great time. Jerry, thank you so much. Again, Jerry DiNardo for being on Louis Live and IsraelSportsRadio.com. Have a good one out there.
Enjoy being with you guys. Thanks.
All right, be well. All right, that was Jerry DiNardo, and he broke down college football in the spring ball.
Essentially.
And I just love the fact that he played against Rudy
in
practice. Cool. That was awesome. That's one of my favorite movies of all time, not just sports movies, but I will be honest, I generally cry at the end of the movie. It's all pretty accurate. One part is they made Coach Dan Devine look a little more nastier than he really was. He wasn't really that bad of a guy, but every movie has to have a villain, and they chose Coach Devine, so he was the villain in that movie. But he did really get a sack at the end of the game. They really did carry him off the field. He really was at Holy Cross and was older and had to work very hard to – I mean, that's an understatement, to make it the Notre Dame team. It was his dream, and he accomplished it. And I was actually told that he apparently had to work just as hard to get the movie made. So another thing with Rudy, and that was just my favorite part of the year with Jared. I'm like a kid in a candy store with that. But he broke down the Big 12. Excuse me.
Thank you for calling the Clarion Hotel of Bristol. If you know your party's extension, you may dial it at any time. For guest services and reservations, please dial 0.
Okay, so this is a isn't this the number? That's the extension, no?
No,
Please
that's
hold
his
while
room-
I try that
That's his
extension.
room number.
Okay.
Yeah, we're calling right now, Tommy Smith. We're gonna redial that, and then we're gonna press 1 to speak with someone. Tommy Smith, of course, did the huge game last night. That'll be the first thing we talk to him about. This is very exciting. I know Ari's very excited. He's not a big soccer fan,
But even I have heard of Tommy Smith. I mean, he's just that more well known.
Okay, we're gonna try it again. Sorry about that. Okay. Hopefully it goes.
Thank you for calling the Clarion Hotel of Bristol. If you know your party's extension, you may dial it at any time. For guest services and reservations, please dial.
I'm sorry, but that was not a valid entry.
Thank you for calling the Clarion Hotel of Bristol. If you know your party's extension, you may dial it at any time. For guest services and reservations, please dial 0. For the restaurant,
Please hold while I try that extension.
At p.m. until 7 p.m. and enjoy our complimentary.
Thank you for calling the Clarion Hotel in Bristol. This is Jenna. How can I help you?
Yes, can we have room 310, please?
Sure, one moment, please.
Hello?
Hi, is this Tommy Smith?
It is indeed. Raphael?
Yeah, actually, this is Ari Louis, co-host with Raphael. You're live on Louis Live and IsraelSportsRadio.com. Thank you for being on. How you doing out there?
I'm pretty good, thank you. Enjoying a nice, comfortable temperature day.
Hi, Tommy. You're on right now with Raphael. I wanted to thank you so much for coming on. There's so much great stuff to get to. Of course, we got to talk about the match last night. Such an amazing match. Bayern Munich moving on, Real Madrid not being able to make their penalty kicks. Tell me, was it weird for you to see guys getting paid so much money, Kaká and, of course, Cristiano Ronaldo, missing those penalties? Just give us some thoughts of the game. Of course, you broadcasted it, so what was it like getting the opportunity to call such an amazing game?
Yeah, it was an incredible game. I mean, and unfortunately, sometimes football games have to end up with penalty shootouts. I mean, I don't think that there's a more pressurized situation in any sport than having to step up there and take a penalty kick in that kind of a situation. And during the game, I was kind of surprised that Real Madrid didn't push on. I mean, they came out and they ran Bayern Munich off the field for the first 15 minutes, scored 2 goals, and obviously if they had gotten the third one and came very close to it, Benzema had a shot which I thought was going to bend in. Had that gone in 3-0, we'd be talking about a different scoreline. But that's what makes football the game that it is. We just are never sure. And I think one of the things that really stood out with me was Robin. I mean,
Right.
Robin supposedly had a fist fight with Ribéry. He had a black eye. Everything had gone on. But yet and all, when it came time for the penalty kick, you heard Robin. Our microphones picked Robin up saying, I am going to take it. Give me the ball.
Right.
He put it down and he beat Casillas. And that just shows you the character of a man and the character of a team.
Right, and Casillas, I mean, I love this guy. I've been following him since I believe 99 was his first year, something around that. He's still a youngish guy. I mean, he was called up to Real, I think, at age 18, maybe even 17. I don't remember right now. Tommy, let me tell you, I've had a blast watching the Premier League this year. I really don't understand the argument with the La Liga is better than, or excuse me, yeah, La Liga is better than the Premier League. I don't get that. I mean, the team that's in third place in La Liga is 20 points off Real and Barca. I mean, the Premier League, you know, West Bromwich is beating Chelsea this year. Everton has had some big matches. I mean, this league, Tottenham was doing so well at the start of the year. Now they're falling off. But this league is, I mean, even Wigan and Bolton, yeah, they're in relegation, but they're still very capable teams. I love on Saturday here, it's in the Sabbath here on Shabbat, just, you know, turning on the match here at 4 p.m., 6 p.m., and watching myself some great Premier League. I want to ask you, what do you think has been going on with Chelsea? They stomped the Spurs 5-1 a couple weeks ago in the semifinals. Now they're in the Champions League. They sacked their manager earlier in the year. Suddenly, they're on a roll. They're playing great. Roberto Di Matteo has done an amazing job there as an interim coach. What do you think's going on in Stamford Bridge?
You know, it's one of those things that really a perplexing question, why they are so inconsistent. I mean, one week they show up and play an unbelievable game, the next week they show up and they don't have it. But I think you've made the case for the Premier League yourself, and I think that's one of the reasons, because the competition is so intense in the Premier League that you just can't take anything for granted. And I think if anything, Real Madrid and Barcelona got caught out a little this time, because really in La Liga they never have to defend. We never see how good or how bad their defences are, because in my opinion the other teams are so much weaker than they are. Where in the Premier League you can get caught out. Look at Manchester United last weekend, if you want an example of it.
Right.
4-2, 10 minutes to go against Everton, and Everton scores 2 goals on them, and
Last
Manchester
8
United
minutes.
get caught.
Absolutely.
So, you know, it speaks for itself, I think.
For those fans just joining us, we are speaking with ESPN's Tommy Smith. And Tommy, I want to ask you, how much are you looking forward to the Manchester Derby this weekend?
Well, this is obviously the biggest derby that I have ever seen. I mean, and I'm fairly old, you know, and I've seen a lot of them. I think this one eclipses everything. You know, Fergie's playing it very cautiously. He's saying, okay, I don't have any injuries, no new injuries to report anyhow. The team is in good shape. And his point that he's making is that, you know, there can be 2 results for Manchester United in this game. They can get a draw or they can get a win and still be in good shape, where all the pressure is on Mancini. He has to get a win. Anything but a win, I think, and his goose is cooked. Mancini has been playing it very low-key, saying, oh, United are still in control. I'm not sure that's the best way to go about a game like this. I'm not sure it is. But certainly, you know, the atmosphere will be red-hot electric. Any of you who have ever been to a derby in any city, let it be Celtic Rangers, let it be River Plate in Argentina, any of these derby matches are very special. But this one basically has the championship written on it. Whoever wins this one, in my opinion, is going to be crowned champion of England. And I have never anticipated one that I wanted to see like this one.
Right, it's going to be great. The next thing I want to ask you are based in America, so let's give a shout out to Clint Dempsey. Clint Dempsey, who's having a monster season with Fulham, 16 goals. I mean, that's great. The longest time in America was Landon Donovan. Of course, Landon Donovan's been to Everton on a couple loans, but he's never really stayed with the team. He's an MLS guy. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's true. But Clint Dempsey's had a great year. He's really helped show that Americans are getting better, getting more exposure. Can you talk a little bit more for our listeners in America who are listening right now about what Clint Dempsey has been able to do to this Fulham team and just for American soccer in general?
Yeah, well, I worked closely with Steve Nicol. Steve Nicol and myself are on press pass many times.
Right.
Of course, Steve Nicol was the coach of Dempsey when Dempsey was with the Revolution, and that's really where he came to the fore before he went to England. And, you know, he tells me that, you know, he has never met a more dedicated player than Clint Dempsey. Clint Dempsey is dedicated 100% to his game. And he said what is even more important is he has a bulldog attitude. He's never beaten. Clint Dempsey doesn't see himself in the situation where he can't get the ball, and then when he can get the ball, that he can do something about it. I mean, I think he's been a fantastic ambassador for the United States. I'm not sure why he doesn't really get the plaudits that he deserves. I think he deserves an awful lot more. I mean, I just happen to think he's a fantastic player, and I would not be surprised at all to see him leave Fulham now and go someplace else. I think he might be with Arsenal next year.
Wow, with Arsenal, that'd be great for America. And speaking of the Gunners, wow, they've really turned things around the last couple months too. Of course, we're in Israel, Tommy, so we're huge. I'm even wearing my Benayoun jersey right now, my national Benayoun jersey. Tell me, I think that when Benayoun plays with any team, he just makes the team better. And it's not necessarily the goals that he scores. It's just he's such a smart player, has such a great IQ. He's played now Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, I believe West Ham back in the days. I mean, he's a superstar in Israel. I got to ask you about Yossi Benayoun just because you're on Israel Sports Radio. So what are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I think he's a very, very intelligent player. I mean, you don't have to be a fantastic goal scorer to be a great player. And Benayoun is one of those players that, unfortunately, sit down to write the story of what happened in the game. Sometimes he's the man that's forgotten. I mean, the contribution that he will make, the position that he takes up on the field, and he snuffs out a lot of fires before the fire even gets started. And then he's a kind of the match that will light the fire on opposite. Because I think one of the great things that Benayoun has going, and I've noticed amongst a lot of players in your part of the world, who I consider your national team to be one of the unluckiest teams over the last 20 years in international football. But Benayoun has that kind of a mentality. I'm not sure where it comes from, whether it's maybe an academy that you guys have there or something like that. But he has that intelligence that he knows how to play the game. Doesn't really ever going to be the big star, but he does get the job done.
Right, and I believe a lot of people, fans, or especially people in the media in England, really appreciate him. But as you touched on a second ago, we really have our national teams really, I mean, in the last 8 years, all I can say is one word is Greece. Greece has ruined our lives in the World Cup qualifying, in the Euro qualifying. Every single time we get really close to making it to a tournament, they just come into Israel and just beat us, and then we go there and lose. It's very frustrating. I'm a huge Israeli national fan from birth, and I mean we have really great players, as I'm sure you know, across Europe right now. It's not like our players just in Israel. We have Ben Sahar, who's a really young guy, Itai Schechter, who's playing in Germany, Tomer Hemed, who's playing in Spain. I mean, we have guys everywhere, and it's just kind of sad. You got to feel bad for Benayoun because he's been on the team almost, I think, 12 years now, and he hasn't been able to participate in a big tournament, and this was kind of his last chance, the Euro this summer. So that's kind of funny to hear you say that we've been the most unlucky team, national team in the world. So thank you. I'm going to take that as a compliment, Tommy. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I seem to remember Israel going through a whole campaign there where they really didn't lose. I mean, they had so many draws that if they had gotten another couple of victories out of those draws, and very, very unlucky not to get victories. And, I come from a small country too, and I come from a country that finds it very hard to qualify for campaigns, for World Cups. We're lucky enough, Ireland's lucky enough to be in the Euros this time.
Right.
We're lucky enough to qualify. So I realize, I mean, it is countries, it's easy for Brazil, and it's easy for England, and it's easy for Spain and Germany to keep the international game alive. But it's countries like Israel and Ireland and San Marino and countries like that who really have never going to win anything that keeps the international game what it is, because we are interested in participating where the other teams are interested in winning, where we would love to win. I know you would love to win, we would love to win, but we know that the reality of the situation is we're not going to win. But without us, there would be no international football, and sometimes the international community doesn't seem to remember that.
That's a great point. I haven't thought of it that way. I mean, those teams that do qualify do have to play us, and we give them battles. I mean, it's not like they dominate us. That's something I love about football, is that it's always a battle. I mean, you watch I'm sure you're in America, so you've been watching NBA and all that in football. I mean, those games or matches, it sometimes is over by halftime. In football, the teams never give up. Even let's say, for example, last night Madrid was up 2-0 by the 12th minute. You could have said, okay, it's over. Bayern's never going to come back, but they did. I mean, they did, and now they're advancing, and Real's not. So that's what I love about football. The next thing I want to talk to you about is going back to the Premier League. Talk about some teams that have really, really struggled, and we're talking about powerhouse teams, big teams. That is the Spurs and Liverpool. More so Liverpool, because Liverpool has really struggled all year. What do you think? Let's start with Liverpool. What's going on there? I think they're in 7th place right now. No European competition for them. What are the people in Liverpool thinking? I mean, Everton had just a successful year, pretty close to it.
Yeah, I go back and I always say, and you know me, I'm outspoken. I say what I think.
Right.
I think the worst thing that happened to Liverpool was, and you talk about teams not quitting, was in the Champions League final when Benitez was managing them. They came back from 3-0 down to win a Champions League, and Liverpool kind of felt at that stage, well, everything was fine, but it really wasn't. I mean, everything wasn't fine. The cracks were already starting to show at that stage. If you're down 3-0 to an AC Milan team at halftime, hey, things are not going well. Okay, you come back and you win it. But things went from bad to worse with Liverpool, and nobody really said, this is our problem, we need to check this. And then, of course, they took in Dalglish, and Dalglish is the king as far as Liverpool are concerned, and couldn't do anything wrong. But in my opinion, that was a big mistake, because there are a lot of issues at Liverpool that needed to be addressed. And he wasn't going to do it because he is a Liverpool old boy. And I am a little bit surprised that the Americans stood by. John Henry, a man who owns the Boston Red Sox here in the United States, has stood by and let Dalglish do what he's done. I mean, okay, people are telling me, well, if Liverpool win the FA Cup, that's a kind of saying, well, it's been a pretty successful season. But, I think this is just spin. I mean, Liverpool have so many problems. Starting, the first thing is they're too dependent on Stevie G. Stevie G was a fantastic player, but Liverpool came so dependent on him that it was almost like he was Liverpool. And then when the wheels started to fall off the wagon, I mean, he just couldn't get things going again. I think Liverpool have huge, huge problems. They're going to have to clean house, and maybe even clean house in terms of the manager. Okay, they're telling me, Steve Nichols tells me, now you got to give him another year. I'm not sure that I'd give him another year. A lot of this is his fault.
Right, and of course the huge controversy I know in Britain, it was all over the tabloids and the media with Suarez being suspended, and of course that also happened in Chelsea with John Terry. But okay, great stuff there. Moving on now to Tottenham, there's of course, as you know, Tottenham, the Yids, a lot of Jews are big fans of Tottenham. We have a lot of listeners in Israel that are Spurs fans. I sometimes watch this there's a group of people that watch the Spurs matches every week. Wow, it's a tough time to be a fan of the Spurs. They are having such an amazing season, and suddenly it's just collapsed. And Newcastle's in fourth place, which is really amazing. But what do you think's been wrong? I mean, I think Tottenham went through a streak of 3 or 4 months where they were unbeaten, and suddenly they just can't seem to get points. So what's going on with the Spurs?
Yeah, this was a team that at one point I said on Press Pass that I thought that Spurs had a chance that they might be fit to give United and City a bit of a run for the money in terms of being champions. And then this whole thing came out about Harry Redknapp being the lead man as far as the England job.
Right.
Everybody wanted Harry. And all of a sudden, and guys are telling me, no, you're crazy. It had something to do with it. I know the Spurs had a few injuries after. I know that, and Gareth Bale hasn't played like he played earlier. For whatever reason, he's gone off, So I think Harry Redknapp has to take some of the blame here. And not because he should be manager of England or shouldn't be manager of England, but I think he should have handled that whole situation in a different way, not got himself involved at all. And, I mean, Spurs just, I suppose if you look at it realistically, what they were doing was they were performing above their level. They were above their head. And then when they came back down to play the type of football the Spurs should be playing, I mean, even Modric is not playing like he played earlier. So I think maybe it's the long season and it just finally caught up with Spurs, and this is probably the level that Spurs should be at. Where they were earlier was a level above them, and now they're back down to earth.
Right, and Tom, we only have 2 minutes left. I wish we had more time because there's so much I could talk about with you, and this has been great. But real quick, I know this is a tough thing to do, but real quick, the Euros coming up this summer as well as the Olympics. You can't have a segment without talking about David Beckham. So there's some rumors that he might make that Olympic team. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think he should just give up already and stop worrying about being on the national team, or what are your thoughts on all that?
Well, I know David reasonably well, and the one thing about him was he's a competitor. He's never going to give up that thought. He wants to play on the Olympic team, and I think he should play on the Olympic team. Okay. I mean, I feel just from an advantage of being a leader, he should be fit to play on this Olympic team. And, at the end of the day, it'll be a nice award for him, and if they win it, they win it. If they don't, whoever wonders about Olympic football anyhow.
Right, and real quick, I know it's early, or it's not really that early. The tournament starts, of course, in about 5-6 weeks. Can you give us your favorite, or who you think is going to win the Euro 2012 championship?
Well, I had them favourites for the last Euros, Germany. I had them favourites for the World Cup. I think that Germany will finally come good this time. It's the third time lucky, and I think that Germany will come good this time.
Okay, great. Last thing I want to ask you about, I had the opportunity to live in Senegal for 1 year, and ever since then I've been really kind of watching African football, Senegal, Cameroon, Ghana. What do you think happened to Senegal in the CONCACAF? I mean, they were horrible. I watched every match, and they lost to Equatorial Guinea. They lost what happened there? What exactly? There's so much talent. I mean, a lot of their players play in France, England, everywhere. And I know people in Senegal, my father works there all the time, where people were devastated that they couldn't even get out of the first round.
Yeah, I think a lot of the problems in African football in general is not the football on the field. It's all of the things that goes on around the outside of the game. I mean, there's no doubt Senegal have fallen off the map in terms of the talent they have. They should have done better. But I think it's the organising of everything that goes on along it. You've seen Nigeria, the same thing. A lot of talent can't really produce on the field. I think the best team in Africa right now is Ghana. But Senegal, certainly, I think the problems are, in most cases, off the field rather than being on the field, and the kind of conditions where they play. And there's a lot of things that has to be done to improve African football, and it should be done because there are so many talented players coming out of Africa. The world could be an awful lot better place with these players.
All right, great stuff, Tommy. We would love to talk to you more, but we're up against it at the end of the program. Thank you so much for being on Louis Live and Israel Sports Radio, and I'll tell you what, this was so great. We would love to do it again in the future. What do you say?
Oh, I would love to be on with you guys. Really, I would love to be on with you. You know, there's a feeling out there somewhere along the way that maybe Ireland might be the lost tribe. Who knows? Tommy Smith, ESPN. And that Smith is with a Y if you want to contact me on Twitter.
Absolutely. Great stuff, Tommy. Be well. Enjoy this weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.
In my own language, Goramila Mayagat, Slán Agus Banach.
Okay. Great stuff. Thank you, Tommy. Be well.
Bye.
All right, that was Tommy Smith from ESPN. That's going to conclude our show for today. It was a great show. Great way to cap off the week. Want to thank everyone who was involved. Joseph Kotach, editor-in-chief at Pro Basketball Draft. Adrian Banks from Barak Netanya, the leading scorer in Israeli basketball.
Right, 21 points a game.
21 points a game. College football expert Jerry Donardo, who went up against Rudy Rudiger in practice at Notre Dame. And ESPN's Tommy Smith, breaking down soccer. Stay tuned next week.
Go ahead.
Stay tuned next week. We're going to have Kurt Schilling and much more. Shabbat shalom to everybody. And that's it for tonight. God bless and good night.